What's your deal? He seems to have let himself go. Short-circuited, perhaps. Oh, right. That New Year's revolution. Resolution. Yup. What was that again? The backlog. He's been knocking out titles in the library non-stop. It might have taken a toll on him. Oh, especially after that last one. Yes, that last one. Which one was that again? Opportunity. Lost somewhere along the way. The merc with the mouth.
This is my jam.
Wade Wilson, the merc with a mouth, the one and only Deadpool. Once a D-list copy and paste villain, this wacky death machine of a character has seen a sudden rise in popularity within the last decade. From his run-ins with the X-Men, his adventures with Cable, and solo comics, Deadpool slowly amassed a consistently growing following with the help of some various forms of media. Be it by becoming an online meme or making appearances in video games, you can say that all that has culminated to his current standing as a popular big-shot anti-hero who could be considered a household name in terms of being a Marvel fan. And I guess back in 2013, that popularity just screamed video game opportunity for the guys back in corporate as they twiddle their thumbs salivating at another chance to cash in on another fictional character. Not that I don't appreciate the sentiments of having the chance to play as Deadpool in video game form, but meh. I'll explain the groan later. Now, for a while, because of licensing issues and whatnot, the Deadpool game was removed from online distributions, leaving only physical copies around. Then 2015 comes along, Deadpool movie on the horizon, and the game gets released like 3 months beforehand. I ended up snagging a copy for like $10 at GameStop a year later because I genuinely wanted to play it despite the things I've read. How'd that turn out, you ask? Well, it's an experience. I'll tell you that much from the get-go. Let's break it down from the top. Deadpool the game is advertised as a anti-hero action comedy beat-em-up video game. At least based on what Wikipedia tells me. Anti-hero? Check. Action? Check. Comedy? Check. Beat-em-up? Check. Well, if the shoe fits.
Yo, dog, I heard you like boots. So I put my boots in this boot so I can stop you while I stop you.
Yeah, it's a game. Question is, how well does it play? Okay, I said I would explain myself. So you pop in the game disc and it begins with some expository dialogue by Deadpool, along with a guy from High Moon Studios going over plans for a Deadpool game. So essentially, we'll be playing a game within a game. If that isn't the level of fourth wall breaking I'd expect from something Deadpool related, I don't know what is. Now, the overall plot of the game is being taken care of by a writer by the name of Daniel Way. That name might rub some people the wrong way, no pun intended, as he is attributed to kind of making Deadpool a little extra crazy, namely his whole borderline schizophrenic multiple personality shtick this game chooses to go with. I have to say I'm kind of in that disappointed boat. Previous renditions of Deadpool are definitely a bit toned down on this aspect, but I could see the multiple voices as a tool for Deadpool to have dialogue to bounce off of. It definitely gives voice actor Nolan North much more on his plate for this gig. Before getting into the proposed plot of the plots of the game in the game, you get a chance to mess around with Deadpool's junk in his apartment. Gotta say, it's one of the more enjoyable instances in the game. You get jokes, silly banter, and pretty much just getting yourself comfortable with the bloodthirsty mercenary. You then get your script, make your changes, and essentially play as Deadpool as he goes through his interpretation of how his game should be designed. A fun concept. Definitely a safe route that wouldn't have any long-lasting effects on lore. So, out of the blue, we just happen to decide we're off to assassinate a big shot by the name of Chance White. The first campaign has you infiltrating a corporate building as you slash and shoot your way through a horde of guards. It also acts as a more hands-on tutorial as it teaches you tips and tricks along the way. At first, I didn't feel like I had any problem with the controls. I held that belief for maybe a good 20 to 30 minutes. This game plays like the original Devil May Cry. No wait, it plays like the original Devil May Cry if it felt slightly unpolished, camera made me sick, level designs were dull, and sound effects in some cases could use some work. And Devil May Cry was a PS2 game. The first campaign, I felt, was the best. After that, everything felt like it dragged on. You ever get that feeling when a game literally makes you tired? Not because it was good and you were playing a long time, but because you felt like you pushed yourself to finish. That's me with this. By the time you finish the second and third campaign, you get introduced to and kill some D-list villains in the form of the Marauders led by a very classically designed Mr. Sinister. Soon after, you meet Cable, and it turns out Mr. Sinister is plotting to use Chance White's resources to eradicate mutant kind using the island of Genosha as a base. That's where the rest of the game's 5 campaigns is going to take place. For those who don't know, Genosha used to be a mutant haven run by Magneto, but instead became known as the site of the largest mutant genocide ever after some Sentinels invaded, like the mutant equivalent of the Holocaust. You go through the motions and you're pretty much just going through wave after wave of guards with guns and various forms of enemies that are essentially genetic clones of Mr. Sinister. It's like zone after zone of just bland green, gray, and brown textures. There's like one instance of a quote-unquote new enemy, which is just a model of Gambit they repurposed as a suicide bomber. Interesting, but becomes real annoying because they come in droves. The best parts of the game is when you're not in combat, or at least taking a break from regular combat. Taking charge of miniguns, comedic cutscenes, interacting with objects, stuff like that. Combats and platforming stop being fun real fast. You have a potential arsenal of 3 types of melee weapons: katanas, sai, hammers. The gun arsenal consists of your trademark pistols, double shotguns, machine gun, and plasma rifle. You also get a bunch of throwable grenades and traps. Melee combat just isn't satisfying. Something about the hit detecting and sound effects just made it so bland. On a purely technical scale, it works for its needs, but I never wanted to use them unless I faced an enemy that called for it. For most of the game, I stuck to running and gunning. Enemies dropped ammo consistently enough that it was a viable strategy for most of the game. Why? Because using the firearms actually felt like they had some pop and carried some weight. Literally spent most of my time using the double shotguns as it cleared away almost everything. By the time you reach the end of the game, you're stuck dealing with annoying platforming portions and dragged out firefights even right before the final bosses. And even then, the last area has you fight waves upon waves of enemies in an arena, followed by the return of the Marauders all at once, then you fight a group of Mr. Sinisters. Very annoying fights. Didn't feel like boss fights. Hell, none of the so-called bosses ever felt like bosses. Once you win, you get the option of finishing off Mr. Sinister via cutscene, and Deadpool goes off on a self-congratulatory shower of praise to himself. The end. See, this game did a lot of things right, and a lot of things wrong. The things it did right: the comedy, the character interactions, the explosions, and the in-between minigame-esque situations that took you away from the combat. Nolan North's performance was top-notch. The best parts of it was when the game was clearly self-aware and acted on it. My personal favorite? When Cable first appears and you get to hear this.
Who the fuck is that? He's a man out of time. Who the fuck is that? He likes to fight crime. Who the fuck is that? He ain't out the pool. Who the fuck is that? But he ain't a fool. He's fucking Cable.
Hell, this game has some fun songs and tracks, but all of them are non-combat oriented. But the things it did wrong brought all that down. It was like a roller coaster of yays and ahs, and the ride ended with a meh. I mean, the best part of the combat was probably unleashing hell via firearms and being able to upgrade stats and weapons on the spot. That's it. Alas, it is what it is. What's my verdict? 3, 2, 1. Judgment. This game was like having a colorful cast and fun ideas, then surrounding them in a giant cardboard box filled with a pile of the same toy soldier. And not the cool ones, we're talking Yoga Soldier. Everything that could have been good and grand and fun had its life sucked out by frustrating and bland level design, repetitive and unappealing combat, unpolished platforming, and generic uninteresting rock tracks in the background. This was one of the few games I had knocked down in my run to go through my backlog, and I'm glad to say that this will probably be my least favorite experience in the sense that all there is to go now is up. It's not the best game, and honestly, you can probably skip it. I'm pretty sure you can get your fill off of some YouTube videos or something. Deadpool, the character, is unapologetically brash and foul-mouthed, and at this point, a lovable oaf. But I'm sure there are other methods of doing him more justice than this game. At this point, I think that's all there is to say. Until next time, I'll see you again. Goodbye.
Who the fuck is that? He's a man out of time. Who the fuck is is that? He ain't got a clue. Who the fuck is that? But he ain't a fool. It's fucking Cable.